everyone, and thank you for tuning in to episode 28 of season 7 of the ATA SPD Podcast. I'm Gabriela Escarrá, and I am delighted to be your host for today's special episode, where I have the honor of speaking with our two keynote speakers for the Evolving Linguist Conference, Nathalie Greff-Santamaria and Daniel Šebesta. Hello and welcome to the SPD Podcast. I'm your host today, Gabriela Escarrá. I'm the current administrator of the Spanish Language Division of the American Translators Association. And today's episode is a special preview of one of the highlights of our upcoming event, the Evolving Linguist Conference, which is co-organized by the New York Circle of Translators, the Delaware Valley Translators Association, the Portuguese Language Division, and the Spanish Language Division. This event will take place next September the 6th at Rutgers University in New Jersey. And I am delighted to be joined today by the brilliant and thought-provoking Nathalie Greff-Santamaria. Her keynote presentation, which is titled Beyond the Ostrich-like Approach, Facing Change and Running Toward the Future of Language Services, promises to challenge us, to motivate us, and maybe even shake us out of a little professional inertia. But before we dive in, Nathalie, would you like to introduce yourself to the ATA and SPD audience? Just tell us a little bit about who you are and where your journey in language services has taken you so far.
Hola, Gabriela. Thank you so much for having me. It's truly a pleasure to be here and to speak to the ATA SPD podcast audience. Well, to keep it simple, I'm a literary translator, a conference interpreter with French A, Spanish B, and English C. And I also work as a multilingual conference organizer. So my career began in Buenos Aires, Argentina, and over the years, it has taken me to some pretty unexpected places. Most recently, I've had the honor of serving as head of language services for the Paris 2024 Olympic and Paralympic Games. But beyond job titles and locations, I'd say I'm someone who's deeply passionate about languages and linguistic rights. I think the seed was planted very early on. I still remember vividly the first time I couldn't understand someone. I was 5 or 6, and it was my great-grandmother. Her first language was Poitevin Saintonge, a regional language in France shaped by centuries of cultural and linguistic overlap. And my grandfather had to interpret everything between us. I didn't know it at the time, of course, but that moment marked something important. It sparked a lifelong curiosity about language and later a commitment to preserving and respecting all forms of linguistic identity. That moment has stayed with me throughout my professional life.
Your keynote title comes from something your mother used to say, and I know that phrase, "don't be an ostrich," has stuck with you for years. Without giving too much away, what made you turn that childhood warning into a full-blown message for language professionals today?
Yes, that phrase definitely stuck with me over the years. I don't remember all the exact situations, But apparently, I had this habit of thinking that if I just ignored something unpleasant and just let it be, maybe it would somehow go away or go unnoticed. A kind of magical thinking. If I don't see it, it won't see me. And clearly, my mother picked up on that. That's when she started saying, "Don't be an ostrich." What she meant was simple: face reality. And you know how those early lessons go, they stay with you. Now, as an adult and as a professional, that little voice still comes back more often than I'd like to admit. So, when I started thinking about the keynote, it felt fitting to build it around that phrase, especially now. Because let's face it, change is everywhere, and we don't even really know how fast things will change, only that they are. We are not just talking about a slow incremental change, but about disruptive, unknown, and even overwhelming shifts in our field. We'll be talking a lot about AI at the Evolving Linguistic Conference this September at Rutgers. And I'll be closing the day with a keynote that I hope brings some direction and a bit of motivation too. Over the years, whether starting out as a translator almost 20 years ago, or jumping into conference interpreting, or later consulting, I've constantly had to face the fact that I didn't know something. CAT tools? I had no clue what they were in the beginning because that simply wasn't part of the curriculum at the Sorbonne University where I trained. Audio and video technology for interpretation? A complete mystery at first. RSI, project management tools, equally foreign. So I had to teach myself, learn, follow industry leaders and researchers, attend trainings, read papers, try things, fail, try again, push myself to really understand. And that's why I'll be inviting us all to do during the keynote, to look directly at what's coming or already or what's already here and not turn away from it, but instead face it, not react with panic, not bury our heads in the sand, but respond in a thoughtful, informed, human way.
So, as I know, you will be inviting the audience during your keynote presentation to reflect on how we are responding to change, and one of those elephants in the room that is AI. And there is a lot of noise, a lot of fear, and sometimes a lot of paralysis. Can you give us a taste of how you reframe the AI conversation for us, and why it might not be as black and white as it seems?
That's such an important question. Thank you. Because, yes, we are in a moment filled with noise and fear and a lot of contradictory information. And sometimes it's hard to even understand what we are facing. We ask ourselves, why can't the world just stay the way it has always been? Will I still have work in 5 years? What exactly am I up against? Or even just where do I even begin? So, yes, I admit, I sometimes wish all my clients were like this amazing publisher I started working with recently. They offer the highest standards in the industry, great rates, generous deadlines, no unnecessary tools, clear communication, and payment on time. And the good news is, these clients still exist. But still, we can't let that be the exception we cling to while ignoring everything else. resisting the reality of change, or letting ourselves be paralyzed simply because we don't know what to do, especially when we don't fully understand what's really coming, won't stop the change from happening. And that's exactly when we need to pause, take a breath, and start thinking clearly. What I'll explore in the keynote, without giving too much away, is how we can move from anxiety to action. How can we reclaim our sense of control through sound, informed, professional decision making? This starts with understanding how decisions are made in our field, not just by translators or interpreters, but by institutions, companies, clients, LSPs, and yes, even algorithms. What are the forces driving change? Where are the critical conversations taking place? How can we not only keep up, but actively participate, influence, and shape what's next? Because it's not just about AI versus humans, it's about understanding systems, trends, power dynamics, and how we, as professionals, fit into that ecosystem, not as passive recipients of change, but as contributors to its direction.
Without spoiling anything, what kind of mindset should people bring with them when they sit down for your keynote presentation? What do you hope they walk away wanting to do, or what do you want them to think about?
Well, after a full day of incredible speakers, and I'm genuinely looking forward to hearing them myself, my hope is that attendees will still have a little spark left in them to engage with me during the closing keynote. I'll do my best to keep it interactive, dynamic, and thought provoking because more than anything, I want the audience to bring an open mind, a willingness to listen, yes, but also to question, to contribute, and to co create ideas with me. Working in language services has taught me how powerful listening and interacting can be. And it's actually very different from the work we do as translators or interpreters. We're not usually asked to think about what is being said. We rather focus on how to frame it, how to convey it in another language so it's clearly understood by the target audience. Well, this time you are the target audience and you're asked to act upon what's happening in your field of expertise. So, yes, it's time to brainstorm together because I truly believe that the way forward depends on collective and truly international human intelligence. And if people leave the keynote wanting to get more involved, not just in the AI conversation, but in shaping the future of our profession as a whole, then I'll consider it a success. If I can spark even one actionable idea, one shift in perspective, one moment of clarity or inspiration, I'll be grateful. Thank you so much, Gabriela and everyone. And I'm really looking forward to meeting many of you in person at Rutgers University on September 6th.
Thank you, Nathalie, for sharing just a glimpse of what promises to be an insightful and empowering keynote presentation. We very much look forward to seeing you at the Evolving Linguist Conference at Rutgers University next September the 6th. And Until then, thank you. And now it's time to listen to the other keynote speaker at the Evolving Linguist Conference. Joining us today is Daniel Šebesta, who has extensive experience at the intersection of language, technology, and business. Welcome to the SPD Podcast, Daniel. So to get started, could you briefly introduce yourself and just give us a glimpse of what led you into the world of language services?
Thank you so much for inviting me to this podcast episode. Without exaggerating, my journey in language services has been quite a ride. It all started some 23 years ago when teenage Daniel was not happy with the dictionaries he was using while learning one of his foreign languages. So he put pen to paper, quite literally back then, and sent a handwritten letter to the publisher. A few weeks later, that turned into my first paid linguistic job, updating and revising several print dictionaries for said publisher. Then there was a short stint in part-time language teaching, and then shortly after, I started translating for a local translation agency in my area before I had even graduated from high school. I'm not going to bore you with all the details, but I'm going to say that a degree in linguistics followed, then another one in business administration. For many years, I was actively involved as an ATA volunteer, and your members might remember me as a past administrator of ATA's Language Technology Division. I am based in Europe, and I belong to a number of European associations, especially in the UK and in Germany. My work increasingly takes me to the intersection of language and technology, and I write about translation technology topics for Slater. And people might also know me as a Lock Lunch ambassador, active in Prague and also in upstate New York, where I used to live.
And what are you working on these days, Daniel? Is there a particular area or project that you are especially passionate about right now?
I am very grateful for the multifaceted work that I do every day, where all the facets touch on language one way or another, something I'm very passionate about. As we speak, I'm spending quite a lot of time on interviews and research for the third edition of the Translation AI report published by Slater. And I'm also working on a translation technology chapter for a Routledge handbook. I'm in the middle of a series of webinars on pricing for the British Institute of Translation and Interpreting, and I have a pretty busy conference season ahead of me starting in late summer. In terms of hands-on language work, I finished transcreating a campaign for a power tools company a few days ago, and I'm working on another one for European Union-funded humanitarian aid. I evaluated a book translation for a publisher, a project that was referred to me through a colleague I have known for years through ATA, and I'm writing more and more monolingual copy for email campaigns. I also happen to be a sworn translator in several European countries, and I have just received the green light for a pack of documents that is required for a cross-border merger of companies. In many, if not most of these tasks, I am able to make productive use of automation, AI, technology in general, which is something that keeps me on my toes, and it keeps the work interesting.
You'll be giving a keynote at the Evolving Linguist Conference. Without giving too much away, could you share a short preview of what you'll be exploring in your presentation during the conference?
Absolutely. The central idea of my keynote is that translators as a profession are not so much being replaced, but they're being profoundly redefined in ways that some practitioners may not appreciate. I'll be unpacking the tension between a now famous prediction from 2017 that there would be no translators in 2025 and the reality of 2025, where we're obviously still here, most of us, but operating in very different ways. We'll look at how the rise of neural machine translation, generative AI, and shifts in the economy that go far beyond technology have reshaped what translation even means. I recognize that some individuals may choose not to work in language services the way they look now, but I also argue that survival isn't the benchmark. Adaptability is the benchmark. It's not about resisting change or clinging to the approaches that may have worked well in the past. It's about recognizing where we can add value today, making the best of the technology at our disposal, making the best of the market conditions that we face, and actively designing what's next for our professions. This means rethinking our tools, our mindset, our pricing, marketing, client education, and perhaps seeing ourselves in broader terms than the narrowly defined designation translator or interpreter allows us to. So expect a mix of analysis, provocation, and concrete insights, concrete strategies that you can apply immediately.
Thank you, Daniel. And my last question today is, why do you believe events like the Evolving Linguist Conference are important for our field? In your view, how do they contribute to the growth and development of translators and interpreters today?
Conferences like the Evolving Linguist are absolutely essential, in my opinion, because most of us work in isolation on a day-to-day basis, often from home, and we don't always get the chance to exchange ideas in real time with others who face similar challenges and also similar opportunities. These events bring translators, interpreters, linguists of all definitions into the same space, and that shared experience is quite powerful, in my opinion. That is where we compare notes. That is where we ask better questions. That is where we get a sense of where the profession is actually going, not just where we hope it's going for us personally. In a time of rapid change, we need spaces where we can reflect, regroup, and have candid conversations, not just about tools, but about strategy, identity, mindset. Conferences like this one create momentum. They remind us that while we may work independently, we're also part of something larger, and we're more likely to adapt, to thrive, and to shape the future of our field when we stay connected. And I cannot wait to be at the Evolving Linguist Conference with many of your members.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Daniel, and for giving us a preview of your upcoming keynote. I am sure your session will spark some great conversations and reflections for all of us attending the conference. We are really looking forward to hearing more from you at the Evolving Linguist Conference. Thanks again for being here, and see you soon. So, this is all for today. We hope you enjoyed this episode and found it insightful and inspiring. A huge thank you to everyone who made it possible, and to you, our listeners, for tuning in and supporting us. We invite you to stay connected and keep an eye for our upcoming episodes. And don't forget to subscribe to the SPD Podcast on your favorite platform and follow us on social media. If you enjoyed this episode, we would love it if you could leave a review and share it with your colleagues. Thank you for listening, and until next time.